Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and friends from the press, and for reporters joining us online. My name is Dennis Peng. My first time in London was 28 years ago. I was a young reporter on my way to cover the Persian Gulf War, and my transit flight at the time stopped at London. Here I am, 28 years later. I'm back in London. This time at London, I'm not covering any war news. Instead, I'm here to fight a war in my personal life. War against injustice and between evil and good. May I introduce Professor Lin from Bell College of Business, University of North Carolina, Charlotte, from USA. My name is Dennis Peng. I'm now the host of a YouTube program called True Voice of Taiwan. And I'm a former dean and professor of the School of Journalism at Taiwan University. I should start by saying that although we have found a number of concerning inconsistencies and gaps in relation to President Ing-wen Tsai's PhD thesis, we are at an early stage of our investigation, and we are not in a position to draw any final conclusions about any fraud, or about LAC's role. However, there are clearly grounds for an investigation, and the purpose of this conference is to ask you to assist us. It appears that President Tsai's thesis may not have been properly lodged in the LSE University libraries in 1984, and that the copy she lodged in 2019, 35 years later, is not consistent with all the requirements of a final PhD thesis. We have identified a number of important questions to ask the LSE, and our lawyers will be writing to ask that the LSE to conduct a formal investigation as a matter of urgency. Given the LSE history, it is a matter of major public importance here and in Taiwan that the public is reassured about the way in which President Tsai was awarded her PhD, and if she did in fact meet all the criteria applicable at the time. Until then, serious question marks remain. The topic today is, can one earn a PhD from LSE without a thesis? Ing-wen Tsai studied in LSE between 1981 and 1982, and withdrew from course in the end of 1982. She claims she wrote a PhD thesis under the title of Unfair Trade Practices and Safeguard Actions, submitted on June 1983, and she was awarded a PhD degree on March 1984. She went back to Taiwan and was certified as an associate professor. She went to politics with academic credentials. In 2016, she won the election as the first female president in Taiwan's political history. The challenge begins. First of all, President Tsai had been challenged with her integrity as her thesis copy was never submitted. This is a letter from LSE Thesis Online. It's our library assistant research support services from London School of Economics and Political Science. She replied Mr. Professor Lin by saying that Dr. Tsai's thesis is unavailable, I'm afraid, LSE Library has never had a copy of the thesis. It's a letter, an email from library assistant on June 4th, 2019. The second paragraph indicates that all PhDs from that period were awarded under the University of London banner and would have been sent first to Senate House Library, and this being under law would also have gone to the IALS. The third paragraph says, unfortunately, Senate House Library apparently never received a copy, and the IALS are unable to find their copy. The final paragraph indicates that we had to make extensive searches when Dr. Tsai stood for election, and I'm sorry to disappoint. When President Tsai was questioned with her PhD diploma, she showed 3 kinds of LSE and University of London diplomas in 3 different periods. The first one shown is on July 9th of this year. The signature is Andrew Smith, who was the Vice Chancellor of the University of London from 2012 to 2018. And this diploma, the source is the Office of the President of Taiwan. Tsai's second diploma was shown on September 4th of 2019. The signature is Randall Kirk, who was the Vice Chancellor of the University of London from 1981 to 1985. The source is also from Office of the President of Taiwan. The third one, shown on September 4th, 2019. The signature is Graham Davis, who was the Vice Chancellor of the University of London from 2003 to 2010. And the source is a DPP's Congresswoman. On September 2019, this also is a letter from the head of the Diploma Production Office, the University of London Worldwide. He replied, Professor Lin, by saying that replacement certificates are only issued in case of proven loss or accidental destruction, and they will, of course, still be identical to the original document. Same wording, same signatures. On September 2019, President Tsai took legal actions against 3 professors. One is Professor Lin, the other one is me, and the third one is President Tsai's college law professor, Ms. Ho. We questioned her degree without thesis. In Taiwan, she is immune to lawsuit as an incumbent president. Furthermore, on July 19, 2019, Tsai even ordered her doctoral thesis and doctoral diploma as Taiwan's national secret for 30 years. My question is, if she completed the PhD requirement of LSE, then why she put her doctoral diploma as Taiwan's national secret for 30 years? My question also goes to, did Ms. Tsai make this copy in her garage, or else SE reproduced them, since she have 3 different versions of PhD diploma? On September 23rd, 2019, Tsai handed over a draft of her personal thesis copy in loose pages to National Central Library in Taiwan and obtained endorsement from National Central Library while breaking collection rules. The NCL in Taiwan was further challenged with its favorable treatment to Tsai, as she uses her political weight to determine the criteria of accepting qualified thesis academically. Taiwanese media tends to be quiet about it. We have been sued by President Tsai Ing-wen in Taiwan for accusing her 3 forged LSE PhD diplomas and fake theses. LSE's media relations seem to cover up and delay verification inquiries. The Taiwan Research Office at LSE is funded by Taiwanese government, and the Taiwan Research Office even issued a statement in the press section of LSE website to confirm Tsai's PhD degree. This is on January 16th of 2016. This is on January 19th of 2016. And this is on October 8th of 2019. Furthermore, we found the office also received an anonymous donation of 480,000 pounds from the period of 2007 and 2014. As you can see on the screen. My question is, did this anonymous donation have correlation with this mysterious thesis event? Let me share some facts based on the facts we already found. First of all, no thesis copy has been ever found in LSE Library, Senate House Library, and IARS before June of 2019. Before July 15, 2019, we were able to search LSE Library website on a book which has identical title with Tsai's thesis, Unfair Trade Practices and Safeguard Actions. And this book has co-authored with Mr. Michael Elliott. After we exposed the search with 2 authors in my show, True Voice of Taiwan, the search at LSE Library now only shows one name, which is Ing-wen Tsai. My question is it possible that a PhD thesis has 2 authors? After our intensive investigation, she sent her personal copy on June 28, 2019 at LSE Women's Library, and now classified as a book. President Tsai owes the copyright and hence set the restrictions for reading, copying, and quoting. 4 notes and 1 without is on her so-called thesis. The copyright declaration on all our thesis states, I recognize that copyright of the thesis rests with the author and that no quotation from it or information derived from it may be published without the prior written consent of the author. Therefore, although fair use copying is normally permitted, given the current interest of the thesis, We have therefore taken the decision to restrict copying of any part of the thesis unless the researcher already has the author's permission. President Tsai even claimed LSE Library lost her thesis copies, and that is why she resubmitted a copy through fax to LSE on June 2019. My question is, how can all three libraries lost Tsai's thesis at the time? And also, when journalists ask Ms. Tsai who restricted her thesis for copying and taking pictures or borrowing, she lied.
他要求的做过的话，规则比如说不可以有翻拍，不可以用，不可以用钢笔字，就有蛮多规则。
这个我不知道，这个我也想去了解一下。
这个是你定的？
啊，当然不是我定的。
因为他说是你要求的。
不会是吧？
After Professor Lin and Dr. Alex Xu from Oxford personally read this book, they found a personal copy of thesis full of defects against LSE PhD Academy rules, which including pagination, not in numerical sequence, pages, not single-sided leaves, footnotes, not in numerical sequence, missing pages, handwritten editing, computer-justified format versus typewriter style in 1983. No declaration, no conclusion, no official acceptance by LSE on the front pages. My question is, can this poor quality thesis accepted by LSE? And we can also see more supporting documents. The left-hand side, this certificate is the certification of thesis submission provided by Tsai. However, there is no signature. On the right-hand side, similar documents saying Tsai passed the PhD exam is also no signature. My question is it possible to have official letter from LSE that has no signatures? And this one is provided by Office of Taiwan President Office, Tsai's student record. On the left upper corner, we can see the degree and faculty. It was MPHIL, parenthesis law, but who crossed it out to write it over as PhD. And the bottom is retro, October 80. As we can see in the middle of this paper, we can see the begin date is October 1980. The course length is 21 months. The expected completion date is June 82. Also, in the middle of this paper, that's the tuition record. We can see from 1980 to 1981, the supervisor was Mr. Lazar and Mr. M.J. Elliott. And Ms. Tsai is a full-time student and pay her tuition yearly. And the second row shows from 1981 to 1982, her supervisor was Mr. Elliott, also a full-time student, and paid the tuition quarterly. On the left side, actually is the middle of this paper. The examination option and thesis title was something like a law, a non-tariff trade, barrier, legal, blah, blah, blah. And then who cross it out become unfair trade practices, and safeguard actions. And on the right-hand side, the date of entry was June 83. The result was degree awarded February 84. But the bottom of the paper shows the BS laws, date of approval of thesis title as January 1983. And the bottom line says, remarks, November 10th, 1982, withdrawal from courses, financial difficulties. My question is it possible to get a PhD degree in just 8 months? My second question goes to why there are so many questions on her student records. This page shows what we try to compare her classmates graduate same year from the LSE Law, PhD in 1984. It's so different. Miss Chai's thesis creation day is 2019. And the note saying that a photocopy of Yingwen Cai's personal copy and the dissertation date was 1983. But her classmate, the creation date of the thesis is 1984. And the note on SE is this thesis is the property of the University of London. My question is, why Cai's thesis information shown on LSE is so different from others? We are here to seeking help from British media and British people. Would you please ask LSE, University of London, to clarify whether Cai has gone through all requirements by LSE PhD Academy? Did she pass the oral defense for the PhD program? Who was her thesis examiner? Has the problematic thesis met the LSE PhD requirements? Why the thesis was missing and never available to public reading before June of 2019? What is the relationship between Taiwan Research Program and Taiwanese government? Why is the role of Taiwan Research Program in this thesis event? You may download the 50 pages English investigative report from Professor Lin. He spent 5 months working on this. And here is the QR code. Thank you very much. Let's fight for justice together. And now is a Q&A questions. Thank you for some reporters. You send your questions online, and we will answer one by one accordingly. Let me introduce Professor Lin.
Okay, now we open the floor for questions. And here I got some questions from British reporters. Here, let me read the first question for you. The first question is, do you prepare to take legal action against LSE? At this point of stage, there are many questions that arise from our investigation. And we need to act the LSE to clarify. And our main objective is not to take legal action against the London School of Economics. However, we will continue working closely with our legal team. And then the next question is, here is the second question. A question for Dr. Lin is, what is your motive to start the investigation? Well, the purpose of my investigation is not for political election. It has nothing to do with that at all. It's purely for the sake of honesty or academic integrity. And then the third question. The third question says, during your investigation, did you interview the college that graduated the same year with Wen Cai? I did contact several persons who are related to 1984. I contacted some retired professors at the London School of Economics. I also contacted some PhDs who graduated exactly in 1984. But here I do not want to disclose their name. Okay, I'd like to keep them confidential at this point.
Dr. Lin,
yes.
I have questions. Can you elaborate on the role of Taiwan Research Program at LSE? Do you think that the anonymous donations is connected to Taiwanese government? And how confident are you on your investigation report?
Okay, so there are actually three specific questions. At this point, I'm not quite clear about the role of the Taiwan Research Program in this diploma event. Okay. However, I do notice that co-director of the Taiwan Research Program, Dr. Shi Fanglong, Dr. Fanglong Shi, she has been very active to defend President Tsai Ing-wen from time to time. This is very clear. And whether or not the private donation of about 450,000 pounds is related to the Taiwanese government, I'm not sure yet at this point. But we will continue to explore this issue. And the next one is?
How confident are you?
Oh, sure, I'm very confident on my report. My report has concluded that President Wen Cai was not awarded a PhD degree in law in 1984. Okay, we provide multi-source data. We have provided multi-source proof funding to support our conclusion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further question? Well, if you have no more questions here, I'd like to share a very important piece of information with you. Right after the London School of Economics issued a statement saying that Wen Cai was correctly awarded a PhD in 1984, and we got an email immediately after this statement announcement. Okay, and this email said that this email was from IALS library. Okay, this library confirmed with me once again that the library has never received a copy of Yin Wen-Cai thesis, even though the library has known this new statement. We also got another email from Center House Library. The Center House Library said that they did receive a copy of the thesis, but not in 1984. They received it in 2011. Does it sound very unusual? How come a PhD thesis completed in 1984 could be received in 2011? This has been way too overdue and is certainly inconsistent with the university policy and requirement.
Dr. Lin, I also have another question. According to LSE's student record,
Yes.
She submitted her thesis in 1984 while studying back in 1983, but at the same time, between 1981 to 1984, she also a professor in Taiwanese university called Zhenji University. I don't know how a person can study at a top university in London, LSE, as a PhD degree. At the same time, she also teaching at the university in Taiwan. How can you be a student and also professor without a PhD degree, at the same time teaching and studying at the different places?
Well, this is the latest information I just got from the Taiwan media, and I have noted this event. According to this information, Yin Wen-Cai served as a thesis advisor for a master student in Taiwan, and this master thesis was completed in the spring semester of 1984. So this implied that prior to the spring semester of 1984, Yin Wen-Cai must have been there teaching or doing research there. And this should be a big problem. Okay, according to the student record, Yin Wen-Cai should have been working on her thesis or preparing for her oral examination. How come she stayed in Taiwan and served as a master thesis advisor there? This is a serious time